please remember to leave a like, a comment, share the video about, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Thank you. Well, isn't this just fantastic? Captain's Log, Supplemental. Rarely have we ever partaken in the act of unalive for shiggles here. Today is quite unique then, as our perp is already meeting their maker, so dirt and feces. They should have let me do it though. Hello everyone, welcome to the Halls of Injustice. Today we welcome inmates number 151 to the ISO cubes. Kind of. You see, this is a strange one. They have been tried, sentenced, and have received a punishment. A punishment we here do not usually inflict. But this one intrigued me enough that I felt it only right to induct them into the Halls of Injustice and perhaps speak about the nature of their crime and how certain crimes are treated in differing areas of the world. The inmate's name is Amber Mclaughlin. I'm sure it's actually Mclaughlin or something like that, but I'm going to go Mclaughlin because I'm a dickhead and they're not here to stop, which should be an obvious hint as to the fate of inmates number 151. Because there isn't much in the way of articles covering who this person is, we're just going to dive straight into articles that have covered this so you can fully understand what they did, where they went, and what they unsuccessfully attempted to do to negate the inevitable conclusion to their story. Inmates number 151 becomes the 17th person who is female to suffer this fate, and the very first person in America this year. What a lofty, lofty title. It's a shame you're not here to collect some random trophy. Since 1976, only 17 women have suffered this fate. It's quite unusual, as it has been indicated by a whole number of outlets. Although, not so unusual with additional context. You see, Amber Mclaughlin is also transgender, so we can all argue whether or not male or female if you like, I don't actually care. In 2003, Amber Mclaughlin was sentenced to death for murdering ex-girlfriend Beverly Gunther. The two were previously in a relationship, but they had separated by the time of the murder, and Beverly had gone so far as to receive an order of protection against Amber after she had been arrested for burglarizing Beverly's home. Several weeks later, while the order was in effect, Amber waited for Beverly outside the victim's workplace. Amber repeatedly cut and sexually Beverly. During the trial, the prosecutors argued while pointing in part to blood spatters in the parking lot and in Beverly's truck. The jury had convicted Amber of first-degree murder, forcible and armed criminal action. But when it came to the sentence, the jury was deadlocked. In fact, they genuinely couldn't make up their mind what the sentence should be. For me, the sentence is life without the possibility of parole, and somewhat coincidentally, removing your genitals. Saves you having to go through that transition surgery, I guess. Not that you need that anymore. Most US states with a death penalty require a jury to unanimously vote to recommend or impose it, but Missouri doesn't. This is where it takes place. According to state law, in cases where a jury is unable to agree on it, the judge then decides between life imprisonment without parole or death. The trial judge imposed death. Over the many years up to 2023, inmates number 151's attorneys had tried on multiple occasions to get the sentence of death removed and replaced with life, seeking clemency as well, which we'll get to soon. Their main arguments center around the deadlocked jury, arguing that Amber Mclaughlin's mental health issues and struggles were a big problem for her, a history of childhood trauma, along with being consistently diagnosed with borderline intellectual disability and universally diagnosed with brain damage as well as fetal alcohol syndrome. I didn't know people actually had that. I thought it was just something used to argue why certain cartoon characters all looked like they had it. All drawn by American artists, which I guess does explain an awful lot. Additionally, Amber Mclaughlin was abandoned by her mother and placed into the foster care system, and in one placement had feces thrust into her face according to the petition. This petition was to have some clemency. We'll get to that soon. She later on went to suffer more abuse and trauma, including being tased by her adopted father. She also suffered from depression that led to multiple unalive attempts. At the trial, Mclaughlin's jury did not hear expert testimony about her mental state at the time of Beverly's murder, the petition said. That testimony, her attorney said, could have tipped the scales towards a life sentence by supporting the mitigating factors cited by the defense, and countering the prosecution's claim that Amber acted with depravity of mind, that her actions were particularly brutal or wantonly vile, the only aggravating factor the jury found. In 2016, a federal judge vacated the death sentence due to ineffective counsel, citing her trial attorney's failure to present that expert testimony. That ruling, however, was later overturned by the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals, which I guess made her life a bit of a yo-yo, but one brought about by arguments of semantics and, well, this. The mitigating factors are often used in UK courts. It's used as a way of trying to water down a potential harsh sentence. But I've often found that the excuse of eye-rolling, the worthy excuse of, but I suffered abuse as a child, so this totally justifies what I did, but doesn't justify what I did, because I feel very remorseful for what I did, really. I totally won't go on to do it again because I've done it many times in the past and have a record to show I would. No, I'll never do it again now. I know how severe it is. Bollocks. I find it quite laughable, really. I do understand, though, that mitigating factors like poor mental health, how one is raised, the environments we come from, really do impact us in a negative way and cause us to do negative things. For a number of reasons, the more notable being a cry for attention. However, this isn't a cry for attention, this is a violent, vicious crime committed by a moron, and the sentence should be light. And it can be argued, semantics can certainly argue it, that in the context of death penalty or life without parole, they're the same thing. Amber's attorney told CNN that the execution of Amber would highlight all the flaws of the justice system and would be a great injustice on a number of levels. It would continue the systemic failures that existed throughout Amber's life, where no interventions occurred to stop and intercede to protect her as a child and teen. All that could go wrong did go wrong for her. This is before the sentence obviously is carried out. Because all forms of appeal had been rejected, the final one that you can get is clemency through the governor of your state. In this instance, that would be Republican Governor Mike Parson, who declined the request, being quoted as saying, "Inmate number 151's conviction and sentence remains after multiple thorough examinations of Missouri law. Inmate 151 stalked, that worded, and murdered Ms. Gunther. Inmate number 151 is a violent criminal. Beverly's family and loved ones deserve peace. The state of Missouri will carry out the sentence according to the court's order and deliver justice." Because, of course, I was raised in an environment where at no point do we ever condone such a sentence, I find the language of this quite intriguing. But I respect the law of the land, and I'm not going to be so arrogant as to say I'm simply better than you because we don't do it. We here at the Halls of Injustice remove everyone's genitals if they commit sexual crimes. We're hardly above it. On Tuesday, January the 3rd, inmate number 151's final moments were spent in a small white room in the state's Eastern Reception and Diagnostic Corrections Center. She was accompanied by a spiritual advisor called Lauren Bennett, who had sat by her side when a 5mg dose of pentobarbital was administered at 6:39 p.m. In her final written statement, inmate number 151 said, "I am sorry for what I did. I am a loving and caring person." And for those who are interested, her final meal was a cheeseburger, french fries, a strawberry milkshake, and peanut M&Ms. Personally, I would have gone for the all-you-can-eat buffet at a Chinese restaurant and really tested the limit. Although I'm very much aware in some states, some countries as well, don't offer you last meals or last rites. When the pentobarbital was administered, Lauren Bennett continued to speak and sing to inmate number 151 until she was officially declared unalive at 6:51 p.m. In attendance was Beverly's younger brother, Al. He remembers his sister as the best sister anybody could ask for. He also went on to describe the interactions between Beverly and inmate number 151 when they first met and how the relationship unfolded, indicating that Amber was in fact inmate number 151, that is, was a ginormous manipulative control freak. He also said that he had a bit of a theory as to why Mclaughlin, or Amber inmate number 151, may have been featuring more heavily in the news. That is because while Amber had been claiming to have been transitioning from the age of 12, Amber may well have been trying to do this as a premeditated attempt to get out of the death penalty, which, if that were true, might have stood more of a chance of success had it been done in a different state. Here within the Halls of Injustice, we've only once before covered an inmate that was no longer alive when we covered them, that being Jimmy Savile, who never faced justice for his crimes. In the case of Amber Mclaughlin, according to the governor of Missouri, Amber has faced justice and given the family peace. There is no doubt in my mind that the family of Beverly will find peace in the knowledge that inmates number 151 is no longer here. And just as a rambling ending note, I guess, the one thing I really struggle with is that inconsistent sentencing when you go to different places around the world. It often catches me off guard. In America, you have different state laws if it's a state crime, which is why someone like Chris Watts stays in prison for the rest of his life. And no, I am not so naive enough as to compare the two crimes. We're not doing that.